You have questions.
What is slashing?
We have answers.
Slashing is, like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And there's a penalty for that?
Yeah. You do that, you go to the box, 2 minutes by yourself, and you feel shame, and then you get free.
This is CBJ in 30.
Anything you folks want to know about the fascinating world of pro hockey, here we go.
Tweet your questions by using the hashtag CBJIN30.
We'd like to remind you folks, keep your questions within the boundaries of good taste.
Here's your host, Bob McGilligan.
And welcome to another edition of CBJ in 30 here on this Thursday as we head very quickly toward a Memorial Day weekend, as a matter of fact, but still bringing it to you. Still lots of work to do, still plenty of things to talk about, and that's what we're going to do today. If you have a question, you have a comment, you can send it via Twitter, and you can do that by using the hashtag CBJN30. That is CBJIN30. It is just that simple to do. All right, lots going on. First of all, let's start this show by saying if you were DVRing the IIHF World Championships, just cover your ears. Earmuffs. Earmuffs. Spoiler alert. Okay, now that one person has put the earmuffs on. The Czech Republic has just finished off the United States, winning by the final of 4-3. The U.S. did score one late to make it look a little bit closer than it was, but it was 4-3. And frankly, what for many, I would imagine, is a who cares hockey game. And that would probably be many in the United States because that tournament seems to have much more appeal to people outside of the U.S. Here's my problem with that tournament. There are some good players playing. And I'll be honest with you. I thought about it this morning. I knew the game was going to be on at 9:30, and I thought about it. And I thought about it at 8. I thought about it at 8:30. I thought about it at 9. I thought about it at 9:28. Then I started doing something else because I know it actually started at 9 but didn't come on TV until 9:30. So I could have got out of my way to find it live online, I'm sure. I could have, but I didn't. And that's my point with the entire tournament. That is my point with the World Championships. They just don't do it for me. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, they go on during the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is the best hockey in the world. So, I watched a good game last night. I'm going to watch another good game tonight. Do I need to watch maybe a so-so game this morning? No, not really. And then, and this is probably even more than just that, you don't have the best players playing on these teams anyway. You have guys that are available. There are some guys that are still playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so they're not playing. You have other guys that their season got done, they didn't feel like playing, or they were hurt, so they can't play. Those kind of things. So you don't even have the best players playing anyway. So Tim Thomas was a starting goaltender for Team USA. Okay? Do I need to say anything else? Is there anybody out there that might be a little younger, a little more up and coming, a little better now? Maybe somebody. John Gibson's done playing, right? Maybe. So, anyway. Or is he done playing? He might have got. Is the American Hockey League team still playing? So, he's done playing. Why? But again, then you're talking about players getting done, jumping on a plane, going to Belarus. But, it's just like, why bother? It's just the World Championships. It's not the World Junior Tournament in December. That's a totally different deal. The Under-20 tournament, that's a totally different deal. But the World Championships, It seems like they really get into that in Eastern Europe where their seasons for their leagues are done. And then the best players from those teams wind up playing for their countries in that tournament. So it just, I don't know, just doesn't do it for me. But here's the question that I really want to pose to you. And I think this is a legitimate question, and I've thought about this a lot. If the National Hockey League opts not to send its players to the next Olympics, if they opt out of the Olympics, does the Olympic tournament become the World Championships? Because you won't have the best players playing. There will be people playing. And by the way, if you're going to come at me with the argument of, well, once upon a time they used amateurs, and it worked out pretty well in 1980. Come on, really? now that you've had what you've had the last number of go-arounds in the Olympics with great hockey and NHL players, don't even make that argument to me, because I don't think you'll watch it the same way. I wouldn't watch it the same way. It would be something else that's going on, because obviously the schedule would continue in the NHL, and we would still be playing games. We wouldn't shut it down for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So I wouldn't even pay attention to it as much from that standpoint. It will get lost in the shuffle, and people won't care as much because it's not the Ovechkins and Crosbys and Nashes and Bobrovskis and Isimovs. It's not going to be those players if they opt out. So why is it going to be as attractive? And again, does it become the World Championship Tournament? If you have an opinion on that, you can tweet it. Use the hashtag CBJN30. Because I'd like to know. Because that's what I think it turns into. I think it's another ho-hum, well, that's interesting if I don't have an NHL game to watch tonight. And if I do, oh well. And then what's NBC going to do? They're going to run NHL games and then have to run Olympic games on 3 other channels and hope that somebody watches them? That's still the wild card to me. That is still the wild card. Television rules all. It's the way it works. Radio, well, we talk a big game, but we're just along for the ride. And I'm fine with that. And I'm glad you're along for the ride today. All right, let's go to the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. I made a very bold prediction yesterday. Yeah, it was really bold. It was really out on a limb. I said the Chicago Blackhawks were going to win at home last night and go up 2-0 in their series over the LA Kings. And we had an event at the arena last night for some prospective season ticket holders. And I got a chance to sit down and have a conversation in a town hall setting with the general manager, Jarmo Kekalainen, and with Boone Jenner, which, by the way, before I get into the rest of this stuff, was great. And one thing I like the most about Jarmo is he gets into those settings, and especially now when the season's over and things are a little bit lighter. There's still plenty of work going on, don't get me wrong, but, the atmosphere is a little bit lighter when your team's not playing. There's not that pressure every day. And he really adapts to that so well. I mean, he's just personable and, had a couple of funny things that he said. And he's a very informative guy, too, though. That's the one thing about Jarmo. He's very serious about his job. He knows what he wants this team to be. He knows how close it is to being that. And he knows what moves he has to make to get it to be where he wants it to be. He knows all of that. He's very serious about that. But he was great with the crowd last night and answering the questions. And believe me, there were some questions that I'm sure were not fun questions for him, but that's the nature of the beast, and that's part of the job. And he handled that admirably last night, and it was a lot of fun listening to him and talking to him and kind of picking his brain on a couple of things last night. And then to have Boone Jenner come in, who I thought, by the way, was really good in that setting. And I've talked on this show about the young players and about how their games have gotten better. I've talked about Boone Jenner specifically, talking about his game and how hard he works and how much he will get better because that's what he wants to do. He wants to be a great player. He doesn't want to be a good player. He doesn't want to be an also-ran player. He wants to be a great player. And I've talked about all of that. And I was sitting there thinking last night, there was a time last year where Boone and I had to do a fan event. And he was kind of a fish out of water because he was answering fans' questions and he hadn't really played in the NHL. And he was, he was going off of what he had done in junior and the little bit of pro experience he had in Springfield and the training camps that he's had here, the prospects camps. And he did a good job, but he was kind of he's a soft-spoken guy to begin with, but he didn't have a lot of words for all those answers at the time. And last night, the questions that he was asked, he was very eloquent in his answers. He was very relaxed. He was very laid back. He was very himself. And, I talked with him afterwards, and I said, you really did a good job with that. And he said, well, I just feel more comfortable. And that's a great thing to hear coming from him, because when he says he feels more comfortable, it means that he's not taking any of this for granted. It means that he feels like he belongs. And he feels like he's an NHL player. He knows he has a lot of work to do to be better in that realm, but he is also embracing the other things outside of playing the game. And I think that's great. And this is a guy that for years has been talked about having captain material. Whether that happens to him in the NHL or not, you could just see it and see the way he handled himself. So it was great to be around those guys last night and talk, and all the people that came out for that event last night were fantastic. I had some great conversations before and after the event last night with people, and there's still a lot of excitement hanging around, as you might imagine, with the Blue Jackets season and the prospects for where this team is headed. So anyway, I felt good after that. Was driving home, a very excitable ride home. It was great. I loved it. I was on top of the world. I come in, and my kids were not – they were still screwing around doing homework stuff. So, now I know that's going to be a fun thing to deal with for the next 30 minutes or so. So anyway, you get through that. I turn on the game. Chicago's up 2-0. And I'm like, what a genius I am. I'm a certified genius. I said they'd win at home. They always win at home. This is slam dunk. It was near the end of the second period. Slam dunk, 2-0. All of a sudden, the Kings wind up throwing a puck in front of the net. Justin Williams winds up with a goal. 2-1. All right, no big deal, 2-1, whatever. So, the intermission comes. I walk away. I go do some other things. I'm gone for a while. Finally, the kids go to bed. I come down and look. 2-2. Really? 2-2? Tie game? Oh, well, Chicago will still be fine. Your prediction will still hold, I'm telling myself. Don't worry about it. I walk away again. I come back. It's 3-2. I walk away again. I come back. It's 4-2. Now, I guess what I should have done if I wanted to preserve my own prediction is just sit down and not walk away, because every time I walked away, there was another goal put in the net by the Los Angeles Kings. But I did see Jeff Carter's two at the end, the fifth and sixth. And the L.A. Kings, what a rout. What a rout. 6 unanswered goals, 5 in the third period of that game. But again, that's what that series, that's the potential for every game in that series. That can happen on any given night. And it could happen on either side. And Joel Quenneville said it best, the head coach of the Blackhawks, in his postgame press conference said, we played great for 38 minutes. Well, if the game was 38 minutes long, that would be awesome. But we all know it's 60 minutes long. And those other 22 minutes killed them. And it went from great play to disaster for the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, what does that do in the series? Well, it ties it, obviously. Now you go to Los Angeles. The Blackhawks are going to have to take at least one of those games at Staples Center, which they can, and they have the ability to do. But it also now lets the Los Angeles Kings know that they can win at the United Center, which is important because that hadn't been done, right? So they asked Daryl Sutter last night, what did you tell your team before the third period? And he said something like, well, I told them they're going to lose at home sometime, right? Drew Doughty says he doesn't say much, which I believe. He doesn't say much, but when he says something, it's like those old E.F. Hutton commercials, right? When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. When Daryl Sutter talks, people listen. But you have to listen closely because he's not going to say it very loud. But just listen to the message. They did. They went out. They got the win. A decisive win. One of those. That's one of those wins that says to the Chicago Blackhawks, oh, by the way, if you thought this might be easy, and I know you probably didn't, but just in case you had that thought in your head, we just pounded you on your own ice. Now we have a series. Simple as that. Now 2 days off for those teams before they go back to play again. I was talking with Jody Shelley last night, actually during that game, and he said L.A. had no chance of winning that first game. They just played the 7-game series, had quick travel to go out there. They had no chance of winning that game. So then they got a couple-of-day break, and they come out and they did what they did last night. Now they have another couple-day break as they go back to California. Who knows what they might do at Staples Center. That'll be a situation to watch. It did ruin a big part of what I was going to do today because had the Blackhawks won that, I was going to come in and give this whole spiel on Corey Crawford and how people still talk about him like he's not a very good goaltender, but yet he has a Stanley Cup ring and he could be on his way to his second one. But I'll put that away for another day because I think I get a chance to come back and revisit that, as a matter of fact. The Eastern Conference Final gets back underway tonight. Montreal Canadiens trailing the New York Rangers 2-0. They will be at Madison Square Garden tonight in the city that never sleeps. Montreal Canadiens doing a couple of things yesterday. Number one, Michel Therrien announced that Dustin Tokarski is going to play in goal again. I think I said this somewhat similar to this the other day. when Carey Price is no longer an option, when your best player goes down, and he's their best player. He's the guy, he's the straw that stirs the drink for that team. I don't care what they say and who else is doing what, Pacioretty and Subban and all this. Yeah, that's great. But when Carey Price is not playing well, they still struggle. Like any team, if you have a great goaltender, that's the guy. Okay? So your best player's out, and instead of going to your next best goaltender, as it's perceived on the roster, they go to the minor leagues, they get the young kid, they bring him up because of his pedigree and because of what he has won in the past and World Juniors and, Memorial Cups and all that stuff. So they're putting a lot on his shoulders in that way. But it didn't work 3 days ago. It didn't work 3 days ago. And the opening and the opportunity was there for Therrien to say, you know what, he gave it his all. It just didn't work out. We're going to go with Peter Budaj tonight. But he opted not to do that. He's going right back to the kid. So, there's I always talk about at the major league level, when you're a coach or in baseball when you're a manager, there's obviously coaching to be done and there's strategy that you have to coach. But in many regards, you're more of a psychiatrist because you have to be able to work with every guy and the different personalities on that roster. And you have to figure out what makes this guy tick and this guy tick and how not to tick off this guy. You're doing that constantly. You're worried about that. I'm going to give you this quote. I'm going to give you a quote a buddy of mine gave me a long time ago. He was a trainer in the Toronto Blue Jays system, and he was said that one day he was talking with Cito Gaston, who was the manager of the Blue Jays at the time. And Cito was talking about managing in the major leagues, and his quote was, "Up here, the deer have guns." Okay? Which means the players dictate what's going to go on because they're the ones getting paid the big money. The coach goes, the players stay 9 out of 10 times. So it's that kind of thing. So you're always trying to manage, and you're trying to get the best out of everybody. You're trying to keep this guy happy. You're trying to keep this guy on track. And so he goes to the young kid and basically says, look, I'm not blaming that loss on you the other night. And in many regards, he shouldn't. As I said the other day, they scored 1 goal. 1 goal's not going to cut it. So they've got to score more. But he says to Tokarski, he says, okay, I'm going to give it back to you today. I don't know if I would have done that. I think I would have flipped. I think I would have had Budaj, who had been there, fighting the battles with you all year long. I'd have given him the opportunity. But that's not the way they're going. So for Therrien now, he puts himself in a situation where if this works, and if they win tonight, and if they, let's say they win the next 2 and they come back and they tie the series, then he looks great. If they go down 3-0, and then he makes a switch, that's going to be second guessed. And again, I don't know that that's fair because losing Carey Price makes a huge difference. That's whichever one of those guys you pick, it's not Carey Price. So I don't know if it's fair, but it certainly will be a hot topic point here in the next couple of weeks. And they will talk about it a lot. Now listen, on the way here today, I was listening to TSN Radio out of Montreal. And their question was, if you had something that you would want to say to either one Canadiens player or to the whole team, what would your message be? But anyway, they had this guy call in, and he was talking about Thomas Vanek, who, by the way, yesterday practiced on the 4th line for the Montreal Canadiens. And this guy was trying to tell the host that this is great because Montreal will have balance in this game tonight if Thomas Vanek skates on the 4th line. What? Are you kidding me right now? Thomas Vanek? First of all, for Thomas Vanek, even practicing on the 4th line tells you part of why you're down 2-0. Okay? This is a guy that's got to step up in these situations and find a way to put the puck in the back of the net. He has to. And he's a free agent. He's a pending, unrestricted free agent. In a what-have-you-done-for-me-lately world, if you want to get the big paycheck, he has got to step to the forefront right now. I don't think he's going to play on the 4th line. If he does, it will be early in the game. I'm sure it's a message from Michel Therrien saying, pick it up. Let's go. We are counting on you to be a much bigger part of what's going on here, and you're not delivering. So it is time for you to pick it up and get it going right now. That's what I think that was. You don't put Thomas Vanek on the 4th line. First of all, he's not a 4th line player. He's a top 6 guy who's used to putting the puck in the net. That's not happening right now. The Rangers didn't put Rick Nash on the fourth line just because he wasn't scoring. Now he's got 2 goals in 2 games. I want to see how he plays at home. I want to see how he plays at home tonight. That's going to be interesting because they went from booing him there a couple of weeks ago to now they're in love with him again. But that's New York, right? That's why they call it a New York minute. You can go from this to this in a minute, which in New York is really a second and a half. They can love you. They can hate you. Second and a half. Done. Simple as that. So I want to see how he plays at home tonight. But that game will go on tonight at Madison Square Garden. So, Stanley Cup playoffs, World Championships, all of that stuff going on. And your questions by sending them via Twitter using the hashtag CBJin30. Robert Christopher F. gets the honor of having his first question, or having the first question of the show today. The F stands for, frankly, I would like to know, is this young core good enough to be perennial contenders like the Blackhawks and the Kings, or do they still need a piece? Now, they need more than one piece. First of all, you need to have more scoring. That's first and foremost. And Yarmo said this last night at our ticket gathering. He said we need to have more skill up front. You got to score more goals somehow. There was a stretch where this team went through and they were scoring 4 or 5 goals a game, and it went on for like 2 weeks. And I kept saying, enjoy it while it's here because it's going to dry up. This is not a 4 or 5 goal per game team. They're just not. But everything was going right for them at that time, and then, guess what happened? It went back to 1 and 2. But again, and I'm not knocking them for that. That's what they are. They're grinded out, win with defense and goaltending, and, not score 4 a night. But he would like to get closer to that 3-4 goals a night and would like to do that with a little bit more skill up front. And skill on the back end as well. Not just a puck-moving guy that can get the puck to the forwards and let them do the work, but a guy that's offensively minded on the blue line, especially when it comes to the power play and improving the special teams play. So they need to do a couple of things to get those pieces before you can be a perennial kind of contender. Again, Yarmo and John Davidson came from the St. Louis Blues, too. I was thinking about this yesterday. The Blues are a great team. They've got a lot of pieces, but they're kind of in the same boat. When you think of the St. Louis Blues, you think of a team that's going to manhandle you. They're going to beat you up. They're going to grind out wins, and that's the way they play. You think of the guys like David Backes, who's a good, tough player, but the Tarasenko kid, he's got skill, but you don't think about them being dynamic like the Chicago Blackhawks with a couple of guys like that. So I think that everybody's realizing this by watching the teams that have success. You have to have some brawn. There's no question about it. But you have to have some guys that have some skill and can almost score at will up front. And those are the teams, when you get that right combination, those teams are excelling right now. Look at the Kings. Look at the Blackhawks. Look where they're at right now. That's exactly what's going on. Wayne Lawrence says, is goalie Bob the guy to grow your team around? Absolutely. No question about that. The Vezina Trophy winner last season. This season, it was up and down for him. He was hurt for 5 weeks. Didn't get off to a great start personally. I think when we talk about the Blue Jackets having to get off to a great start this year, I think a lot of that rests on the shoulders of Sergei Bobrovsky and him having to come in and have a better start early in the season too. He didn't look like himself at the beginning of the year. He was playing good. He was not playing great. As it went on, especially coming off his injury, then he was looking great. And you can make the argument that into the playoffs he was looking good again, not great. So that is going to be the area of his game that he needs to pick up a little bit. Gruntpunch.com says, where do you think the best place to trade R.J. Umberger to is? I say Nashville. Well, I don't know why you say Nashville, and I don't know if that's something that would work. From the Nashville standpoint, first of all, right now the rumors that are swirling around there is Jason Spezza going there. And what Nashville has been for years is a team that's been built on goaltending and defense and doesn't have any scoring. They don't have a dynamic scorer. And R.J. Umberger, even though he had 18 goals this year, is not a dynamic scorer. I think when you talk about teams looking for skill, and I'm talking about out-and-out skill, dangle around you, leave you in the dust, put the puck under the crossbar, that's a team that's looking for that, especially with Peter Laviolette taking over as the head coach there. I'm sure he's looking to he's looking to change the culture in that way in Nashville. They've done well winning, but they get into the playoffs and they've been a team that's exited a lot in the first round. They just don't have enough skill up front. And RJ, again, although a great player, he's more that mucker and grinder that has more of that toughness aspect, which I think they have a lot of guys like that, is my whole point. Kevin Jeffries says, when players come from other countries over to play hockey, do they have to get citizenship? They do not, but they do have to get a work visa, just like anybody else. They have to have permission from the U.S. government to work here. Doesn't matter what your job is. Sometimes you run into situations where you get a guy that's playing for a Canadian team, and maybe he's a European guy who's playing for a Canadian team, and you trade for him, and you try to bring him in, and you have immigration issues, and you have to wait. There's a waiting period where the government has to sort through everything before they let them in. That happens. It's just, I almost said it's just like probably with the regular everyday person. Okay, maybe not. Maybe there are certain teams that can expedite the process a little bit. But they still have to do that. They still have to have the work visa. They still have to come in. When you go to Canada to play, you still have to have all the paperwork to be able to get in and play. You have to have the right paperwork to come back here. So you don't have to have citizenship, but you do have to have the proper clearance in the papers. HCBJ says, with the signing of Kirby Reichel and Oscar Dansk, I would like to know, when should they be NHL ready? Well, so would the organization like to know when they'll be NHL ready. But it's, especially with Oscar Dansk, goaltenders take longer. They just do. And they need to play. So Oscar Dansk will need to be somewhere where he can play, be it Springfield. You've got to get games in. You can't play a handful of games a year. And I think it was yesterday that I went on and on about this for a while. You don't bring a young guy up here to back up your number one goaltender knowing he's only going to play 12 to 15 games a year. It's not going to make him better. He has to be somewhere where he can play. The guy would take that job for sure. Anybody will tell you, I'll go to the NHL and I'll back up Sergei Bobrovsky. And they would. And they'd be happy to be here. And they would take shots in practice. They would see NHL shooters, all of that. But they wouldn't be playing in many games. And that's where you get better, is playing in the games. Very simple. Felino's Flock wants to know from me, what is your favorite pregame meal? Oh, I don't have a real favorite. I'm not one of those creatures of habit kind of guys. When I was in the American Hockey League, we used to be able to eat the team meal, which meant that every game day was pasta and chicken, and then more pasta and chicken, and then more pasta and chicken. So I tend to stay away from pasta and chicken now. I don't know why. It must just be, sometimes you do that for 10 years, and then you just continue to do it. You don't even think about it. Other times you do it for 10 years, and you say, oh, my God, I've got to eat something other than pasta and chicken. And that's the way I normally lean. My favorite is whatever close, whatever I'm in the mood for, or if I'm in a hurry, whatever I grab. Simple as that. Sometimes there's not even a pregame meal. Now, if you want to go through and have me rank the pregame meals around the league and all the buildings, no, I'm not going to do that. I could. I'm not going to. But I'll tell you this. There are some places I know I better eat a big lunch because I'm not going to be thrilled about dinner. And there are other places I know I can eat a very little lunch because I am going to love dinner. CBJ or Die sends this question. Who is your favorite guy to interview on the team and why? Dalton Prout. How's that for a quick answer? Dalton Prout. And why? Because he will say anything. And what I mean by that is he is so open and he is so honest, maybe to a fault. But he's just a genuine person. He doesn't look for cliches. He's not thinking about how to answer the question that you asked. He's just answering you. He's conversing with you. And that's what I like about him the most. He is so fun. He has a great demeanor about life and about playing this game, and I love talking to him. If you would come into the dressing room after almost any morning skate, you will find me sitting one of two places, either right over by Dalton Prout or right by Matt Calvert, because those two guys are my two favorite guys just to talk to about anything. It doesn't matter. Matt Calvert talked to me about several TV series that I need to sit and concentrate on watching on Netflix over the summer. Gave me the whole scoops on them, the synopsis, everything. If you like this one, you'll like this one. Here's why you'll like it. I love it. So those are my two favorite guys. But Dalton Prout goes, he gets a slight edge on Matt Calvert. When I say slight, I mean ever so slight. All right? 2 more questions. I might run 2 or 3 minutes over today. And to that I say, you're welcome. Zach Snyder says, with Nikita Nikitin likely gone, what do you think the Blue Jays, see, I was talking about them earlier. What do you think the Blue Jackets do with the defense? Do they pick or bring up somebody? I can tell you this, and we talked about Tim Erickson the other day on this show. Jarmo Kekalainen last night made it a big point to talk about Tim Erickson's game in the American Hockey League this year and about how he was the odd man out up here. There weren't really injuries on the blue line. He didn't get many chances. He came up a lot and didn't get to play, had to just practice with the team, couldn't get into the lineup because, it would be that 7th guy that would get hurt or whatever. But he did talk about the fact, and he also said that he was hurt in Springfield at a time when he could have come up here and play, which is just bad luck. But he mentioned how he was almost a point-a-game player in the American Hockey League this year. Really, reading into what he said, I think Tim Erickson gets a great opportunity this year to figure it out. They're going to figure out if he's going to be a piece of this puzzle or he's not. And that's going to be up to him, of course. It's always up to the player. But he's going to get the opportunity to show that he belongs here and that he has a chance to stay here. That's the impression I got. So, again, I've always said with Nikita Nikitin, if he leaves, Dalton Prout is a big-bodied defenseman if you're looking for that same physical type of player. But, if you're looking for something else, and they keep talking about getting faster, and as I mentioned before, getting more skilled on the back end and helping out the power play, Tim Erickson's a guy that fits that bill as well. And finally, I don't understand this question, actually. Oh, yes, I do now. This is Jonathan, and I know Jonathan is the guy that asked me the other day if lumbus should be in the dictionary. And then he actually tweeted a little while ago saying, even though I'm not a Blue Jackets fan, I made it a goal to get one silly/random question on CBJ in 30 per week. So that was his opportunity earlier in the week. And today he's actually tweeted and referred to the LA Kings and asked if they listen to this show on their days off. Well, Jonathan, I'd love to know the answer to that. And by the way, if they don't, they should, because there is such a wealth of knowledge that they could gain from this show. All right, maybe they'd be entertained. Maybe there's no knowledge. Maybe there's a hint of entertainment. But I would be very interested to know the answer to that question. Maybe I should just tweet Marian Gaborik flat out and ask him if he does. And if he doesn't, he should. That's what I think. So, Jonathan, if you get that answer, you send it to me. If you have any inside sources there, you let me know what they're saying in L.A. about this show going on in Columbus. Because I'm sure it's got to be the talk of the town. I might get invited out to do the show right outside of Nokia Theater before one of these playoff games, right across from Staples Center. I might be invited to go right into the concourse of Staples Center and do this show. I might be invited. They're not inviting me to go anywhere. Dang it. Oh, well. Thanks for tuning in again today. It was fun. Let's do it again, let's say tomorrow at 11:30. Until then, Bob McElligott saying so long.